Hello, Gasaholics. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas. Gas, the Great American Auto Scene. Since 1990, your source for automotive information, technology, a little humor, and some conversation about collector cars, classic cars, hot rods, muscle cars, and more. Now, the other day I spoke about the misuse of the word classic car, and someone called me out and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. These are classic cars." And he was referring to something other than what the definition really is. Now, I say the definition because in 1952, an organization was formed, the Classic Automobile Club of America, and, well, Classic Car Club of America. And it was formed basically to define what a classic car was, because the term is being thrown out just like, well, cotton swabs called a Q-tip. They're not all Q-tips. Well, not all old cars are classics either. And the Classic Car Club of America defined what is a classic car, and that is the standard that has been in place since about 1952. So it's been around for a while, and frankly, I'm not going to dispute it. It is something I've followed as long as I can remember because it's pretty much accurate. Someone calling a 57 Chevy a classic, although it may be a very collectible and desirable car, is not a classic automobile. Now, classic automobiles, by definition, according to the Classic Car Club of America, is 1948 down to 1915. And it has to be, well, a limited production vehicle or an expensive vehicle, which made it limited production anyway. But that is the true definition, and you can find this on their website by going to www.classiccarclub.org, and they will give you the definition. And this is the definition I go by, and many of the people I know do as well, because, again, the word classic is being thrown around for everything just because you want to make it sound good, and it's a buzzword now. Well, that is the true definition, and you can check it out on their website. And now, give you some ideas. Rolls-Royce is considered a classic car pre-1948. Why? Because in the 1930s, Rolls-Royce was produced here in the United States. Yeah, check your history on that one. Trust me, it's there. They did, and they were recognized. Left-hand drive Rolls-Royces back in the 30s were built here in the United States. You can check it out and fact check me if you want. All right, let's go on to something else a little bit more positive. Okay, we're going to take a look at something here, and it's, car terms. And, we always have a term for, well, different things and different cars and different aspects of the car hobby. And I've always had fun with some of this stuff because, you look at some of the wording, like unrestored. Yeah, they just never got around to fixing it. Or cream puff. Yeah, it's going to melt in the rain. It's get so rusted. But there's other things about the car hobby and the terminology used that, makes it kind of fun and interesting. Now, three-window coupe, for example. That's a car that's got two side windows and a rear window. Forget the windshield. That is a windshield. So, Ford three-window coupes, for example. 1929 to 1928 to 1932 Fords. They had 5 windows, 2 side windows. You got a little quarter window, the driver's and passenger's door window, and a rear window. So technically they're 5-window coupes, but that applies to any brand, whether it's Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, what have you. A-Bomb, well, that was a modified Model A Ford back in the day. Antique. Now, besides your mother-in-law, this is a car that's 25 to 45 years old. Now, here we get into what I talked about just a moment ago about classic cars. Classic cars, 1948 and older. Antique, 25 to 45 years of age and to 1946. Now, you got to remember, there was no vehicle production in the United States for consumer use from 1942 till late 1945, early 1946 because of World War II. A-pillar, that's the structure post that supports the windshield and the roof in the front of the vehicle. Barn find, well, yeah, not many people find cars in barns. A lot of people use it because the car was locked away in a shed or a garage and it's really dusty. And that's a barn find. Bone stock, they never did fix it right. Bonnet, now that's a European term, but it normally means the engine or the hood cover. Bump stick, that's a camshaft or something that's grown on something that you really didn't want. Hi, Sharon. How are you doing this morning or this afternoon? And David Wyckoff as well, watching in. Club coupe. No, you're not going out dancing with this one. It is basically a coupe that is somewhat of a sedan. It's 2 doors. It's got a hard roof, a small rear quarter window, and a shorter back than a sedan. Or, well, okay. I have a club coupe. The sedan doesn't have a bustle trunk like its club coupe does. There's also a business coupe, and that had a longer trunk because, well, businessmen or salesmen carried samples in their vehicles. They needed more trunk space. When I was a kid, we used them to get more people into the drive-in. Well, that's another story altogether. Displacement. Well, it depends on the size of the date you had. No, actually, it was the size of the engine that was in the vehicle. A donor car. A vehicle that is used for parts because you couldn't fix it. So you stole them from the other car. EFI, electronic fuel injection. Yeah, it's not a disease. Estate car. That's an old nickname for a station wagon. Also, they were called depot hacks initially because hotels and resorts would use these vehicles to pick people up at the train depot. Remember, this before airplanes were popular and traveling. Fixed head coupe, another British term for a hardtop. Now, I had a Jaguar 1951 fixed head coupe. And again, it's a little over exaggeration. We just call them a coupe here in the U.S., but in Britain, it was called a fixed head coupe. Floor pad, that's the thing you replace because it's been rusted out so badly on many old cars. 4 on the floor. Well, it depends on how quickly you stopped as to whether you slid off the seat. But no, it actually means 4-speed manual transmission. Hi, Glenn and Marlon. Thanks for tuning in. Frame off restoration. It was so bad, you had to remove the body to fix it. Well, that's the joking term. The real term was you took the car down to bare nuts and bolts and everything was off the car. You took the body off the frame. Now, unfortunately, this is another one of those terms that gets misused a lot. It's like when I hear about a 1964 to 66 Mustang that's had a ground-up, frame-off restoration. Can't do it. There is no frame. It's a unibody car. But a lot of people use the term, again, using it as a buzzword to make it sound important. We did a frame-off restoration on our Mustang. You can't. Mustangs have never had a frame. They have always been unibody. As with many other cars from Chrysler Corporation beginning in 1962, most of their vehicles, if not all, were unibody construction. And that made their drag car versions lighter than the competition from Ford and Chevrolet because they were body on frame and quite a bit heavier. Gull-wing doors, that's something you can take off with. No, that's based on the original Mercedes-Benz. Yeah, you remember the Mercedes SLs? Yeah, they had gull-wing doors. They opened straight up, looking like a gull wing. Now, Tesla's got that on one of their models nowadays. And I'm not sure if they're calling them gull wings, but hey, they really are gull wings. Hardtop. That's a car that looks like a convertible, but has a fixed roof. Well, in the early days, they somewhat did, but they usually were a pillarless coupe. So the side windows butted against each other when they were up. There was no pillar, no B-pillar there. Did they look like a convertible? No, not at all. Although the 62 Chevrolet, with its formal roofline, did somewhat represent a convertible. And I've seen people put vinyl tops on them so that they could replicate that and make it look like a convertible, but they really weren't. Now, here's a term that gets bunched around a lot. Hot rod or street rod? Which is it? Well, hot rod was the first name given to modified cars that were chopped up. Example, 32 Ford, Model A Fords, fenders removed, hot V8 engines. They were called hot rods. And it was a derogatory term initially about the cars. So back in the 1970s, an organization called the National Street Rod Association was formed. The goal at that point was to give those cars and the people that drive them a more socially acceptable name. They're not hot rods, they're street rods. We drive them on the street. What was the difference? Spelling. There really is no difference. Hot rod, street rod. Okay. Sometimes they call the carburetor a jug. Juice refers to the gas or the hydraulic brake fluid or electricity. Now, if you got a British car, sometimes the juice just doesn't flow in the right directions. Lucas Electrics. The Prince of Darkness. Kemp, a highly customized hot rod. Custom Kemp. And it wasn't really a hot rod. It was full-fendered, later model vehicles, 40s, 50s primarily, that were customized, lowered, chrome shaved, door handles removed, things like that that made the car look smoother. And that was a custom Kemp or a Kemp. Lowered, a car with suspension or frame modifications that allows it to sit lower than stock. Okay, lowered. I got my car lowered, my daily driver's lowered. It's lowered about 3 inches. Why? Well, better handling, better stability, and better fuel mileage. Now, a lot of people don't think of it that way, but the reality is when you lower a vehicle, you reduce the height from the ground to the bottom of the car body. Now, that reduces turbulence under the vehicle, and the turbulence that helped slow the vehicle down because of wind resistance are removed or reduced, and you get better fuel mileage. I've picked up 2 to 3 miles per gallon lowering my car compared to what it was like when I first got it. And yes, I did. Hi, EJ. How are you doing today? Mag wheels. Well, that's a loosely used term now because mag wheels refer to both aluminum or magnesium. You're not going to find magnesium wheels used on the street. They're too dangerous that way because magnesium, if you hit a curb or chip it, it can actually explode kind of and just disappear, burn up. An aluminum wheel is more forgiving and is not as volatile. So people call aluminum wheels mag wheels. It's just kind of the descriptive term of any alloy style wheel put on a car. They're called mag wheels. Mother-in-law seat. That's a slang term for the rumble seat that was in many cars in the 30s and 20s. Don't have a mother-in-law. Would put her back there, though, if I did. Muscle car. Now, this is another term that gets misused a lot. Now, it refers basically to cars with large displacement engines built in North America from 1964 to 72. However, there's a separate class of vehicles that get called muscle cars when they were when the factories put big engines in them. And that is Mustangs, Camaros, Challengers, Cudas, and a whole host of the small, long nose, short deck lid cars. They were referred to as pony cars because of the popularity of the Mustang. Now, they're pony cars. Doesn't matter what size engine is in them. They are a pony car, not a muscle car. Muscle cars refer to full-size and mid-size cars with large engines, such as the Chevelles, the Buick Grand Sports, and cars of that nature. Those are muscle cars. GTO, an example, one of the best-known muscle car around. Good evening, Jerry Lettner. How are you today? Phaeton. Now, this is an open-top sedan. I don't know how you can have an open-top sedan, but what it is basically it's a 4-door vehicle that has a convertible top and no fixed windows or solid roof. Okay, Roadster, 2-seat convertible without side windows. Now, there's a difference between a Roadster and a convertible. Convertibles got roll-up windows Roadsters did not. They're both two-seaters in many cases. Some have a back seat. But a Roadster is one that does not have roll-up windows. A convertible is one that does. And that's the biggest difference between the two. Some people will call their Corvettes a Roadster. They're not. They're convertibles because they had roll-up windows after 1955. So 56 and later got roll-up windows. 53 to 55 was a Roadster. It had side curtains. It did not have roll-up windows. Street rod. Well, we talked about this a little while ago. And that was something, a term brought out to legitimize modified street cars. And, hot rods had a negative connotation about them. So street rod was a way to try and take the villainous term of hot rod and make it more socially acceptable. Vintage. Well, it's an old car. Anything. Antique. Classic. Collectible. Now, there's a lot of terms that go along with old vehicles. As I said at the beginning, 1948 and older to 1915 is classic. Anything after that is collectible or antique, but they're not classics. And that is based on the true definition of what a classic is, established by the Classic Car Club of America, and they are the authority. You can go to their website, and they've got a list of what an actual classic car is, by brand, by make, and they give you some different information as well. All right, I'm Hot Rod Bob. It's Friday. Going to head out to a cruise night someplace. I know there's one around here. And I'm going to take the car out. Got the Model A Woody in the garage. Been driving it around today. It's ready to go. So we're going to go. You go too. Now, have fun. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday when GAAS returns. Thanks for being part of GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene. Hey, I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas. Have a great weekend, everybody. And tell your friends about GAAS. Hi, Sharon. Yes, I'm going to have fun. You too. Take care.